Bonjour, bienvenue à toutes et à tous. Bienvenue dans notre salle de presse virtuelle et aussi sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le lundi 7 septembre. Nous avons quelques annonces à vous faire. I will start with an update to the President's agenda. President von der Leyen is carrying out interviews this morning via video conference of the two candidates for Commissioner proposed by the Irish government, Mrs. Mairead McGuinness and Mr. Andrew McDowell. Voilà, je donne maintenant la parole à Adalbert pour une annonce sur la coopération entre la Commission et les partenaires économiques et sociaux pour soutenir l'intégration au marché du travail des migrants et des réfugiés. Adalbert.
Bonjour tout le monde. Cet après-midi à 16h30, les commissaires Schmit et Johansson signeront une déclaration conjointe avec les partenaires sociaux et économiques, donc syndicats, organisations patronales et chambres de commerce, pour relancer leur coopération sur l'intégration des réfugiés dans le marché de l'emploi. Les signataires renouvellent leur engagement dans la mise en œuvre du partenariat européen pour l'intégration, lancé en 2017, et expriment leur intérêt pour la coopération dans de nouveaux domaines, comme notamment la migration des travailleurs, aussi dans le contexte de la présentation prochaine du nouveau pacte sur la migration et l'asile. L'événement sera retransmis sur EBS.
Merci beaucoup Adalbert. Ceci conclut nos annonces pour aujourd'hui et nous sommes donc prêts à passer à vos questions. Je passe la parole à Athanasios. Athanasios, you have the floor.
Thank you, Eric. Bonjour. The President of the European Council spoke with President Erdogan on Sunday, and they have agreed on a couple of things. Apparently, there is a process. I was wondering if the President of the European Commission is going to call Erdogan sometime soon, since the Commission is going to be the implementing arm for whatever is to be agreed in the end of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Athanasios. You can be confident that if a phone call is planned between the President of the Commission and President Erdogan, you will be informed. I cannot, for the time being, make any statement related to such a conversation. Right. Let's continue perhaps on the issue of foreign affairs and relations with Turkey. So please only keep your hand raised if you have questions on that. Are there other questions on this? No. Other questions on foreign affairs for us today? Yes, I see Ernest has a question. Ernest, you need to press the speak button.
Hello, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it's a question for Peter. In fact, we saw a joint statement from President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, and the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Abdullah Hoti, as a re-engagement towards the alignment that the aspirant countries have with the EU. Now, my question is, first of all, is Mr. Lajčák aware now of what you call the Washington documents, and what concretely from those documents can help the dialogue that is facilitated by the EU? And also, do you think that the parties were aware when signing these Washington documents that they are going against the common position of EU when it comes to the neutrality of Jerusalem, because they signed to move the embassy of Belgrade in Jerusalem and also the new embassy of Kosovo that will go there once the diplomatic relations will be on. So do you think they were aware of what they were signing? Were you informed? Was Mr. Lajčák informed before these documents were signed? Or do you think that the Prime Minister of Kosovo and President of Serbia were just bullied by President Trump? Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Too many questions. I tried to make notes, but if I forget to tackle one of them, then just feel free to remind me. Indeed, thank you and good afternoon. The next round of the high-level dialogue between the Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Kosovo Prime Minister Abdullah Hoti started a few hours ago here in Brussels. The talks are ongoing. You will be informed about the outcome of this round later on by the EU Special Representative Miroslav Lajčák. The High Representative already spoke ahead of the meeting where he welcomed this reaffirmation or repeated commitment by both Serbian President and Kosovo Prime Minister, their commitment to the European integration of both of Kosovo and Serbia, to which they attached the highest priority. He welcomed that they confirmed this jointly ahead of today's meeting, and they jointly also recalled that they are committed to continue the work within the EU facilitated dialogue, because this is one of the key elements on their EU path and for their EU future. You then asked about whether they were aware what they are signing, the Prime Minister and the President in Washington. I think that's a very good question for them. You know that the White House event was not EU-organized event. This was an event organized by our American partners, where both Prime Minister Hoti and President Vučić signed individually for Belgrade and for Pristina their individual documents consisting of commitments towards the United States. So that's not really for us to comment on this. We are currently, as I said, in the talks with both of them, and today's meeting is also, apart from the agenda which was set and announced last week, also a good opportunity for them to tell us and to inform us more in how far the commitments taken unilaterally towards or vis-à-vis the United States will affect their European ambitions, and how these commitments will help them on the EU path. When it comes to the agenda of what was discussed and agreed and done in White House, we were informed ahead of the meeting about the issues related to the economic cooperation, so economic issues. We were not told, we were not informed about the other issues which were then tackled in the end. If parties were aware about what they are signing, again, that's a question for them, not for us. We cannot speak for them. And did I forget anything? I think I tackled. Okay. On the embassies. Again, this is bilateral commitments taken each by Kosovo and by Serbia unilaterally vis-à-vis Israel. So the questions about the implications should be asked, motivations and implications should be asked to them. I can only recall that the EU position on moving embassies to Jerusalem is very well known and has not changed. So there is no EU member state with an embassy in Jerusalem. The EU delegation is not in Jerusalem. This is in line with the United Nations Security Council resolution number 478 from 1980. And the EU has repeatedly reaffirmed our commitment to the negotiated and viable two-state solution. Part of this negotiated two-state solution is also agreement on final status issues. Jerusalem is one of them. It's the final status issue. And in our conclusions from December 2017, it were conclusions of the European Council. The heads of states and governments of the EU reiterated that the EU position on Jerusalem remains unchanged. Our position is very clear. A way must be found through negotiations to resolve the status of Jerusalem as the future capital of both states, Israel and Palestine. And the aspiration of both parties, the Israelis and Palestinians, must be fulfilled. And since Kosovo and Serbia identified EU accession or EU integration as their strategic priority, the EU expects both to act in line with this commitment so that their European perspective is not undermined. Serbia is already negotiating its accession towards the EU, and Serbia is therefore expected to align progressively with its policies with the third countries, with the policies and positions adopted by the European Union. And in this context, any diplomatic steps that could call into question the EU's common position on Jerusalem are a matter of serious concern and regret.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions on this issue, Serbia, Kosovo, the discussions which took place in Washington? Please only keep your hand raised if this is the case. I see that Lorne has a question on this issue.
Yes, Lorne Cook from Associated Press. The talks were frozen for quite a long time, Peter, 18 months or so. And it seems that by the US coming in, it's managed to give them a kickstart. At the same time, they've only just got going again. And here we are in the heat of an electoral campaign in the United States. And is it helpful to have this twin track approach? Is it annoying at this time? Would you rather it not be there?
Thank you, Lorna. In fact, it was almost 20 months of standstill, but the EU facilitated dialogue is ongoing since 2011. Within this time in the framework of this dialogue, many things have been achieved already. There have been altogether, I think, 16 agreements, 16 joint agreements negotiated and agreed since 2011. A lot of progress has been achieved for people in both Kosovo and Serbia in terms of moving goods, moving people, integration of Serbian police and judges and prosecutors into the Kosovo system. So a lot has been achieved, and the reasons for the standstill could be found not on the EU side, because EU is always there as a facilitator, and we are ready to facilitate whenever the partners, the main parties, the main actors are ready. Now, when it comes to the EU and US, there is only one EU facilitated dialogue, because this dialogue delivers on the European aspirations of both Kosovo and Serbia and their populations. So you can achieve your European future only through the EU facilitated dialogue. Now, whatever happens on the side and fits positively into bringing both parties closer to normalizing their relations and is in line with the EU acquis and the EU legislation and with international law, it's always welcome, because it fits positively into this, provided these parameters of compliance with the EU acquis and international law is there. So it's not two parallel processes. We have a process. What we've seen in White House was an event, and some of the commitments were already building on the previous dialogue-related talks, which was also stressed by both the President and Prime Minister today in their reaffirmed commitment as conveyed to High Representative, which you could see also in the joint statement issued by President Vučić and Prime Minister Hoti. So it's an ongoing process that has also input from other sides, but the main process is EU facilitated dialogue that moves always forward when both actors are ready to move forward. And this is what we are witnessing now since since we restarted in July. We had 3 meetings at the high level, 4 meetings of the negotiators, and we hope we will continue in this positive direction.
Thank you, Peter. Continuing on this issue, I see that Mose has his hand raised. Mose.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Yes, I would also like to continue to ask Peter about this Pristina-Belgrade dialogue, especially what happened at the meeting in Washington on Friday. We only got questions about how suddenly Israel somehow, let's say, was involved in this. And you said now, answering another question, that moving embassies to Jerusalem would not be in line with EU's position. But I would like to ask you about the other issue, what was a surprise to all of us, I think, and that was that it was announced that Israel would recognize Kosovo. And that came as a surprise, I think. Also, I mean, especially considering that Israel is so much against unilateral recognition of the state of Palestine before any solution has been found to the conflict. So my question to you, Peter, is what does EU think about other countries, not only EU countries, there are still 5 EU countries which haven't recognized Kosovo, but other third countries recognizing Kosovo before, let's say, Serbia and Kosovo have agreed about, let's say, a solution and about normalizing their relations and about mutual recognition. I mean, would that be helpful for the dialogue? Or should other countries wait to recognize Kosovo until such, let's say, mutual recognition has been agreed between Kosovo and Serbia? Thank you.
Thank you, Mose. I can, on the issue of recognition, Kosovo, Israel, Palestine, I can say what is our consistent position. I mean, recognition is something which is competence of individual states. So therefore, it's not for the EU to comment on this. So specifically questions related to Israel recognizing Kosovo and vice versa is not really for us. I mean, this is for the two parties concerned. And as I mentioned already earlier, whatever is agreed by countries on the EU accession path or by countries which and partners which have EU integration as the highest priority needs to be in line with the EU legislation and with international law. And this is the thrust of the EU facilitated dialogue, that within the framework of this dialogue, we try to help both partners, both parties to arrive to mutually agreeable solution, resulting in legally binding agreement on normalizing their relations, tackling all the open issues. And once this is achieved, I mean, this needs to be, of course, in line with the EU acquis and in line with the international law.
Thank you. We continue on this issue with Ekrem. Ekrem, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Eric. Peter, Kosovo side has committed in Washington that it will not seek membership in international organization for a period of 1 year. My question is, once this period is passed, is Kosovo entitled to apply for EU membership, regardless of the situation with 5 countries? If you have an answer on that.
Well, I would only repeat that what was agreed or signed in Washington expresses the unilateral commitments by one party or another party towards the United States. So I'm not at liberty to comment on this because this is not what happened in the framework of our relations with Kosovo and Serbia. These are their commitments with the United States. On your question, when Kosovo would be allowed to apply for EU membership, I'm afraid I will have to refer you to the point that there are still 5 non-recognizers within the EU, so Kosovo is still not able to submit a formal application for EU membership, but Kosovo has a clear European perspective. It has been recognized, and we are working for years already very intensively with Kosovo, with people of Kosovo, and with the representatives of Kosovo in order to help them to move forward on their EU integration path, so that at one point it would be possible for them to apply for the membership. And that's also one of the objectives of the dialogue, because without the normalization of the relations, neither party, Serbia or Kosovo, cannot enter the European Union actually in the very final stage. So these issues are interlinked, and I would really, really urge to see them as step by step and not jumping ahead few steps.
Thank you, Peter. We will continue on this issue. I see that Zoltan has his hand raised. No? Ekrem, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Peter, can you please explain? You are suggesting that unless 5 countries have not recognized Kosovo, Kosovo is not allowed, enabled to apply for membership. And at the same time, but correct me if I'm wrong, you are suggesting that if there is an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia, then the 5 countries might change their position.
No, I'm not suggesting anything. I was explaining the sequence of steps, what needs to happen in order for a partner to be recognized as a country which can submit the application, because the application for EU membership can be submitted only by countries, by states, individual sovereign states. And since Kosovo is not recognized by 5 EU member states, the EU is basically status neutral in this way. So we cannot do the steps with Kosovo as we would do with any other existing country which is recognized by all 27 EU member states.
Okay, thank you very much. I do not see other hands raised. Only keep your hand raised if it is on external affairs. I don't see any other questions related to Serbia-Kosovo, but I do have other questions on foreign affairs. So I move to Thomas, who has a question. Your mic source is wrong, Thomas. We cannot hear you. Sorry, it's not working. We see you, but we cannot hear you. If you don't mind, Thomas, while you try to solve the issue, we will move on and come back to you afterwards. So, staying on foreign affairs, I see that Catherine has her hand raised. Catherine.
Hello, Eric. I was wondering if the Commission have any comment to make on reports that Maria Kalesnikova, one of the leaders of the United Opposition in Belarus, has been kidnapped. I've seen some reports of it from different sources, but I was just wondering, is the Commission, is the EAS aware of it, and do you have any comment?
Thank you, Catherine. Indeed, we are aware of the reports that few members, actually, not only Ms. Kolesnikova, but some other political activists and people who were engaged in political process in Belarus have been missing. So we are trying to establish the facts, and I can say that what we are witnessing in Belarus is basically continued repression by the authorities against the civilian population, against the peaceful protesters, political activists, people who have their opinion expressed and who want to have their voice heard. This is completely unacceptable. The EU was very, very clear in our statements that we consider the actions of the authorities in Belarus unacceptable. We are deeply concerned about the continued repression and intimidation of the population by unexplained arrests, very often arbitrarily arrests which are motivated politically. This is unacceptable. We call on all people who have been detained based on political reasons and arbitrarily to be released immediately. And as a response already to the unacceptable behavior of the Belarusian authorities, which unfortunately continues, the EU has decided already to put the responsible people on the sanction list. The work is ongoing. We are getting there, and we will impose sanctions and restrictive measures on those who are responsible for this unacceptable behavior against the population of Belarus.
Thank you. Let's continue then on the issue of events in Belarus. Please only keep your hand raised if it is on this issue. David Carretta, I see you have your hand raised. No? Okay. Yes?
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, absolument.
Oui. Excusez-moi, je n'arrive pas à allumer ma caméra pour des problèmes de connexion. Bonjour, tout d'abord. Et Peter, can you tell us when you will adopt sanctions? Because time is running and the repression is ongoing. So the decision was taken 10 days ago or something like that, but with no results for the moment. Thank you.
No, but the work continues very intensively. There is clear determination. There was a clear political decision announced that we want to see those responsible sanctioned, and the working formations of the Council have been tasked to start the necessary procedures. Procedures take their time, but there is the political will and determination to have it concluded as soon as it gets. And it's not question whether, but the question is only when, and we hope, based also on the political expectation, that this will be very soon.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions on events in Belarus? No, then let us move back to other issues on foreign affairs. And Thomas, who's not able to connect by phone, but he has sent us his question in writing, so let me read it out for you. Do you have any reaction on the arrest of Mr. Rusesabagina in Rwanda? Family claims he has been kidnapped. President Kagame says he came back out of his own will. Voilà. What is our reaction to that? I believe that would be more for Nabila. Bonjour, Nabila.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bonjour. Good morning, Thomas. We take note of the arrest of Paul Rusesabagina on 31st of August 2020. We understand that the Rwandan police, links his arrest to incidents that took place in Rwanda in 2018, and we expect that due process is followed and that an investigation will allow to establish the facts.
Thank you. Are there other questions on this issue? Please only keep your hand raised if it is the case. No, I do not see any other questions on this. We stick to external affairs. I pass the floor to Sarantis.
Good morning. Peter, was the European Commission aware of Mr. Michel's proposal for an international conference about the Eastern Mediterranean? Was it in coordination with Mr. Borrell?
Yes. No, go ahead.
I mean, of course, if President of the European Council speaks, it's, of course, I mean, he speaks on behalf of the EU.
So in this case, Peter, are you asking officially Turkey to sit at the same table with Cyprus? Because this has not been the case so far.
Well, our message to Turkey, as reinforced by the EU foreign ministers almost 2 weeks ago in Berlin at their informal meeting, was that the dialogue needs to start. You need to start dialogue in order to solve all the open issues, all the issues which are creating frictions or irritations in the relations with EU member states. And only in dialogue you can find solutions which bring settlement of these issues and bring back the stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. This is the key. So the message of the EU foreign ministers was very clear. The message was conveyed to the Turkish counterparts. So basically everyone knows what needs to be done in order to defuse the tensions.
Thank you. Thank you. We had closed, in fact, that chapter for today. So let's try to move on to other issues, but still on the external affairs front. I have Nawab, who has a question.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Sorry, my camera is not working properly. My question is on Libya. Morocco yesterday hosted a meeting on Libya with the participation of both the parties. So I would like to ask about your reaction to this. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Nawab. In the follow-up to the visit by the High Representative in Libya last week, he visited both Tripoli and the eastern part of the country. We can only welcome any steps, any activities which go in line or which go towards resumption of the political talks. That means making the ceasefire sustainable, restarting the 5+5 military talks in Geneva, and finding a way how to restart the real political process on finding the political solution within the framework and parameters of the Berlin process, because under the UN auspices, of course, because this is the most important thing. So whatever activity goes towards the direction in the framework of the Berlin process, towards sustainable ceasefire and political solution and political talks to find a political solution are always welcome steps and initiatives.
Thank you. Are there other questions on Libya? No, then let's continue on foreign affairs. I saw that Anna had a question. Anna, you have the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde, j'ai la question effectivement à Nabila concernant les situations au Mali, parce que ces jours, la situation sécuritaire a détérioré dans une manière dramatique. 2 soldats français ont été tués, 10 soldats maliens. Et dans ce cadre, j'aurais voulu poser la question, est-ce que l'Union européenne soutient, soit partage la position de ECOWAS pour toujours fermer les frontières du Mali? Je pose cette question parce que c'est la commerce qui est arrêtée, donc ça frappe l'économie des Mali et c'est très dur, très lourd pour les gens qui sont déjà dans les situations économiques très difficiles. Et en effet, personne ne sait profiter des pauvretés qui est les djihadistes qui déjà exploitent la situation dramatique des peuples maliens. Donc, est-ce que vous partagez cette position d'ECOWAS de continuer de fermer les frontières des Mali, soit vous êtes plus favorable d'ouvrir les frontières pour le commerce extérieur?
Merci Anna. Nabila.
Bonjour Anna. Premièrement, je voudrais te rappeler le tweet du HRVP Joseph Borrell par rapport au décès des 10 soldats maliens et des 2 soldats français qui sont morts au Mali. Ils participent tous à l'effort collectif pour renforcer la sécurité dans le Sahel et leurs familles et leurs frères d'armes ont toute notre compassion. En ce qui concerne ta seconde question, les questions des sanctions appliquées au Mali est précisément en train d'être débattues au moment où nous parlons, donc dans le cadre du sommet des chefs d'État de la CEDEAO qui se tient à Niamey. Lors de derniers sommets consacrés au Mali le 28 août, la CEDEAO avait adopté une démarche constructive et une bonne volonté afin de préserver au maximum la population malienne et une marge de discussion avec la junte au pouvoir. Donc, on note d'ailleurs qu'au sein de la CEDEAO, la question de la fermeture des frontières posant de nombreuses difficultés, notamment pour des questions humanitaires, ne fait pas l'unanimité. Donc, en outre, les mesures restrictives ont été édictées par la CEDEAO sur une base volontaire.
Merci beaucoup, Nabila. Je ne vois pas d'autres mains levées, si ce n'est celle de David on External Affairs, I suppose, David, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. I have a question about Iran and the report of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which visited one of 2 sites. And in the first site, they found that the amount of enriched uranium was 10 times that permitted by international agreement. I'm wondering whether the EU has got any action plan in order to get this reduced to an amount which doesn't threaten world security.
Thank you, David. Peter.
Yes, David. Last week there was a meeting of joint commission of the JCPOA on the 1st September in Vienna, where there were discussions also about Iran's nuclear program. And I can say that we remain concerned about the negative trajectory of Iran's implementation of its JCPOA nuclear commitments, as confirmed recently in the IAEA report you were mentioning. We once again urge Iran to reverse all activities which are inconsistent with the nuclear deal with the JCPOA and return to full implementation of the commitments stemming from this agreement. At the same time, we are welcoming the agreement between Iran and IAEA, which was reached not so long ago, following the visit of the Director General of the IAEA to Tehran, which brings the cooperation back on track. And we continue to support monitoring and verification activities of the IAEA because this is the most important impartial international organization in charge of verifying nuclear non-proliferation commitments by Iran. In fact, it's the only impartial international organization which does that.
Thank you. Are there other questions on foreign affairs for us today? I do not see any hand raised, so we will close this chapter. Thank you to Nabila and Peter, and we move on to other issues. Zoltan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Eric. My question is for Christian. I would like to ask questions on the Hungarian border measures. As you, the Commission, do you hear me? Sorry.
Perhaps you could switch off your camera.
As you know that the Hungarian...
You could switch off your camera. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
Yes. So the Hungarian government was supposed to reply to the Commission letter, the Commissioner's letter this weekend, as I understand. My question is, has the Commission received any reply to the Hungarian government? If yes, what? Secondly, as you may know, that the Hungarian government is meanwhile has changed some measures in this law. Does it satisfy the Commission or not? And I have a third question as well, which is not closely related, but dates back to the MFF deal. namely that, as you know, that there was a part of the MFF deal which speaks about the linking the payments, the EU payments to the rule of law, that the Commission should put forward some new proposals when it comes to the tracing back the final beneficiaries of EU funds. My question is when the Commission will prepare or submit this new proposal. Thank you very much indeed.
Zoltán, perhaps I can start with the final question. I would like to revert to the results of the European Council and the statements which were made after that, where it was said that work on the rule of law conditionality would continue based on what is on the table. And this is where we stand today, and there's a process which is ongoing, which is led by the German presidency in this respect, and negotiations obviously with the European Parliament. For the rest, let me pass the floor to Christian.
Thank you, Eric. Sultan, on the Hungarian border measures and the letters, for now I cannot confirm yet that we have received, so we have not yet received the reply. But we expect the Hungarian government to reply in due course. Of course, we are aware of some changes that were introduced over the weekend, notably easing restrictions for business travel. But our assessment will, of course, depend on the response received and our analysis of the response by the Hungarian government. And as we made clear before, there are very clear rules on free movement in the European Union that every member state needs to follow.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Zoltán, you have a follow-up? No. Okay. Are there other questions for Christian on the Hungarian border measures? No, I do not see any. Other questions for Christian on the issues related to freedom of movement? I do not see any, so we close this chapter and move to Momchil. Momchil, you have the floor.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Does the European Commission has a comment about the decision of the spokeswoman of the Bulgarian Parliament to forbid the access of journalists to the members of Parliament, because she said that instead of having a direct access to the members of Parliament, they will have the possibility to watch on the monitors the speeches and then to ask the PRs of the different parliamentary groups to arrange contacts with the members of Parliament. But the most important is that the spokeswoman, Mrs. Karayancheva, said that such practice is common and popular in Europe. So would the European Commission comment the prohibition and everything connected with that?
Momchil, I'm sorry. I'm afraid that we are not aware of the issue that you have raised. In general, I would refer you back to what we said on Friday on this very podium on our complete support for the freedom of the media, pluralism of the media, and the necessity for the media to be able to work in good conditions in order to carry out their essential function for democracy in Europe. And we would stick to that, not knowing further details, not having had time to verify them. Thank you. Are there other questions for Christian on Bulgaria and the rule of law? I see that Shona has... Oh, it's Brexit. Okay, so no further question I see on Bulgaria. So, Shona, you have the floor. Sorry, apologies. Before I give you the floor, Shona, Catherine, you had asked for the floor. Was it on Bulgaria?
No, it was on Brexit.
Okay. Well, you had asked for the floor before in any case, so I will give you the floor. Shona, we will come to you straight afterwards. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so I imagine it's about the same issue. We've heard reports in the Financial Times about leaked plans that the UK is prepared to use domestic legislation to override some parts of the withdrawal agreement, maybe specifically the protocol on the Northern Ireland border. Now, we've seen a tweet from the President of the European Commission, but I'm just wondering if you have any comment on these reports. Do you think that it will damage this week's negotiations?
Dan.
Hi, Catherine. Indeed, I'd point you first and foremost to what President von der Leyen tweeted and the messages in that tweet a couple of minutes ago. But in addition, I would have the following to say. From the very beginning of these negotiations, the European Union has been engaged constructively and in good faith with the United Kingdom. We are fully concentrated on making the most out of this week's negotiating round and out of negotiating rounds that will follow. We share Prime Minister Johnson's desire to reach a deal quickly. We will do everything in our power to reach an agreement which should be in line with the EU's long-term economic and political interests. The future economic partnership with the UK and any free trade agreement must ensure open and fair competition, encompassing robust commitments to ensure a level playing field, as set out in the political declaration agreed with Prime Minister Johnson last October. The EU has made numerous constructive proposals to move the negotiations forward, and Michel Barnier has repeatedly said that there needs to be enough time later this year for the European Parliament and the Council to have their say on any agreement. Whether or not there is an agreement in place by the end of the year, the UK's decision to leave the single market and the customs union will inevitably create barriers to trade and cross-border exchanges that do not exist today. That's why we've been informing national administrations and European businesses about the necessary readiness measures that they need to take. I would finally point out that while we are determined to reach an agreement with the UK, the EU will be ready, in the event of a no-deal scenario, to trade with the UK on WTO terms as of the 1st of January 2021.
Voilà, Catherine, I think you have gotten an extensive response from Dan. Let me now pass the floor to Shona then, with my apologies. Shona. Please press speak.
Sorry. Dan, just if it does materialise on Wednesday that the UK does introduce legislation which will undermine the Irish Protocol, the withdrawal agreement, can you just confirm that it won't be possible, therefore, to conclude a free trade agreement? Because surely the implementation of the protocol, the withdrawal agreement, is a prerequisite for a free trade agreement.
Shona, I think that the President, I would point you to the President's tweet on this, but we're not going to speculate at this stage on anything that might or might not be announced on Wednesday. The tweet of the President is extremely clear when it comes to the trust that she has in the British government implementing fully the withdrawal agreement and the fact that it is an obligation under international law and a prerequisite for any future partnership. You have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks. Just have you had any discussions with the UK side about this report? Has there been any communication around it? Thank you.
Not that I'm aware of. In any case, Dan?
Shona, I would just repeat what Eric said there, that the full implementation of the withdrawal agreement, including the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland, is a prerequisite for the negotiations on the future partnership. And Michel Barnier will raise this issue and the statements that have been made with David Frost this week in London.
Thank you. Let us continue on this issue. If there are other questions, I pass the floor to Nick. If it's on this.
Hi, Eric. Thanks, Dan. Just quickly, in the past, we were told that if the UK didn't honour its obligations on the Irish border, that there would be no point continuing talks, and that the EU would see no point in continuing talks. Does that position still stand?
Nick, I think I can repeat exactly what I've just said and exactly what the President said earlier this morning, that the full implementation of the withdrawal agreement, and in particular the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland, are essential. These are legal obligations under international law. This is a matter of trust. This is about this is a prerequisite, a precondition for the negotiations in the future partnership. And I think that's clear, and I don't think we need to say any more.
Thank you, Dan. Other questions on this issue for us today? I do not see any, so let me open the floor to other issues if there are any. Thank you, Dan. David, you have a question on another issue.
Yes, thank you, Eric. It's about the official journal, and in particular about the publication of the appointments of the judges and advocates general to the European Court of Justice. There was a press release from the Council last week about these appointments, and it is dependent on the publication in the official journal, which is under the control of the Commission and establishes what is legal and what is not. Can you confirm or tell me whether anything has been published in the official journal about this, whether there are plans to do that? There's a controversy about the Advocate General Rantos, which is now a legal case, and was there an opinion about his appointment defined inside the Commission? Could you say a little bit more about how the process of publishing in the official journal takes place? Thank you.
David, with all due respect, I would say that we will come back to you on this bilaterally. I don't think you can expect that we here on the podium, on the record, go through all the steps that and all the procedures that are foreseen for publication in the official journal, but we will be happy to look into what we can say on this issue. Thank you. Let us move on to other issues. Rafaela, you had a question. Rafaela, you need to activate your mic. I'm not sure that the source is the correct one. It does not seem to be working. Whilst you try to solve the issue, let me see if there are any other questions for us today. That does not seem to be the case, so let's try one last time with Rafaela. If not, you can always contact us bilaterally. So unfortunately, we cannot hear you. So Rafaela, please contact us bilaterally. Thank you very much to all of you for your participation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thank you.